So the Being Heard project was about giving a voice to people who have mild hearing loss, and that's defined as people whose hearing thresholds is between 20 and 40 decibels, where better than 20 is a normal hearing level. And there's a lot of research out there about being profoundly deaf or very severe hearing or having a cochlear implant, but there isn't much telling the experience, the impact for people when their hearing begins to deteriorate or they're just managing with that low-level hearing loss.
We put a call out for contributors and we wanted to get as many people of different ages, different experiences, different backgrounds as possible. We were also involving some of our students, some of the drama students who were learning how to be researchers, so they were also involved in the interviewing. But my main involvement has been in taking the transcript of those interviews and putting those into a script, and that's a verbatim script, so taking that material word for word, making some choices about what things that we might include and things we might leave out, but not dramatising it in the sense of writing a play based on that material, using the material itself. That would then be presented by actors.
First of all, we tested everybody's hearing to make sure that they fell within the criteria of having a mild hearing loss, and asked them questions about how long they'd had it and making sure that there was no other underlying things that we should be referring for. And then we asked them a series of questions that looked at different aspects of their life. So looking at how the hearing loss started, how it's impacted on their relationships, how it's impacted on work, their social life, their feelings of well-being. And we then collected all that data together and we looked for common themes. They also gave us some very nice insights into how they coped, how they managed, how they sidestepped some of the issues in order to get on with their lives.
For me, drama seemed to be a really great tool to tell some of those stories, very much, very precisely from the real experiences of people.
15 years ago, when I was still at work, sometimes people would be calling to me and I'm still walking and I just carry on until I get to the point where I was going, go to put my keys in the door and realise my keys aren't here. So they were trying to tell me I had the wrong set of keys for the door I was going to. So then I had to walk all the way round to get the right set of keys. So it was from then, yeah. But I worked in a prison, so keys are quite important. I don't think it hampers my lifestyle. Just hampers my conversations because I'm a bit of a chatterbox.
I noticed I couldn't hear people talking, and there was one time the phone rang and I was picking it up and I just couldn't hear it. At home I switch on the TV and you find you're turning the volume up, and then I tried to cover up one side of my ears and then I noticed I couldn't hear anything, but the other side was a lot better.
Things like being in a crowd of people. Sometimes I drift off, daydream a bit more, and then I find it hard to get back into the conversation. Or if there's a few people in the room, sometimes I lose threads of the conversation.
Just generally, you know, when you go into a noisy place, it's really difficult to follow conversations. And I know that's a sign that you've got some hearing loss. You know, if you go out with people from work and somebody's leaving and you go to a noisy bar and you're standing right next to the person, I know that I can't follow the conversation.
I start realising that I can't hear the doorbell, and then it's kind of like feeling insecure because if there's the postman bringing a parcel, you miss the doorbell and you miss the delivery. So that's why, you know, I was thinking I need to sort something out with my hearing.
My mum had hearing loss in her 50s. But I discovered my hearing loss earlier than her, so basically it's from my mum. And at home, my boy talks to everyone about everything. He tells my friends, Mum's got a hearing aid, so it's not too difficult for me to tell people. And it's then I start to understand how my mum felt when her hearing was going. I was always shouting at her, and now I'm finding out how she felt.
I can't hear myself, so I have to shout. And they kept saying, "Why are you shouting?"
My husband's really helpful. It's quite funny if we go to the chippy or something. He has to translate sometimes for me. Well, we got married a couple of years ago and we told the registrar I was deaf. It was so funny. So she talked slowly, but not in a way that was annoying. But then she stumbled on some words and I stumbled on the same words that she did because I listened phonetically. So it just sounded like I was taking the mick out of her and I wasn't.
I don't think they've adjusted. I mean, I think everybody knows that as you get older, your hearing goes. They haven't really got to the point where they're saying, "Mum, you need to go and sort something out." And when they do, perhaps I will. I'm a bit stubborn. They took the mick a bit, really. "Oh, Mum's getting old." But again, I just took it on the chin.
I mean, I can hear Carrie in the car, you know, to my left. I can hear her. But sometimes I just don't understand what she says. I might give the impression I'm not really ignoring you. It's just I haven't got the gist. And she changes the subject so quickly. I don't know what subject we're on.
My job's a PA for a director. I haven't found that it affects my work at all. The only thing I have noticed is that I have to take notes at meetings, and if occasionally everybody's talking at once, I don't know what everybody's saying. Well, however, having said that, the meetings that I'm in it are chaired by some really good people, and they'll repeat what's being said. So I think you just say, well, I think you just, oh, well, you'll have to repeat that. I'm a bit deaf. But I think everybody does that, don't they? And you sort of get round it that way, make light of it, yeah. At the minute it works.
Working life hasn't changed, but I do mention to my boss that I have a hearing problem. Some of the equipment is not suitable for me to use. In general, if I need to answer phone calls, there are hearing loops. Emails are fine. The working environment is set up for people with disabilities, so I'm okay with that.
I worked for the same firm for 48 years. And I was a quality manager, which meant that I was down in the factory and my office was sort of open to the factory. But 48 years ago, no one ever said wear air defenders or anything. Wasn't heard of. I mean, nowadays it's different. Even so, the factories I've been to, a lot of them fellas won't wear the air defenders, and there's nobody saying you have to wear them.
Difficulties in meetings. More and more people seem to be mumbling. I'm sure they're not. Or perhaps they are. Some people do. It's sort of trying to decide, is it that I can't hear them, or is it because they're not speaking clearly? And you have to say, well, it's because I can't hear properly, not just blame other people.
When we did go out on Freshers Week, there was this one time where we did go to a club and I was trying to both A, relate to the friends I was with, and B, try to be on the level of the club where the music wouldn't overpower my ears. There's still been those people who have gone like, "Oh, you're not being fun because you're not coming to the club." And I've been like, no, it's because I can't go to the club really.
I'm quite a positive person. It's just one of the joys of getting old, isn't it?
I don't think my friends have realised, no. Because I think I make a joke of everything. Everything's turned into laughter, so even if I don't hear exactly what they were saying because I tried to lip read, I get the gist of it and we might make a joke about it, or if we're serious, I say, "You know that conversation we had earlier on, what was it all about?" Well, they'll say, "Weren't you listening?" And I'll say, "No, not really." I can say I didn't hear you and then they'll repeat it. They'll say whatever it is, maybe not the whole sentence, but they'll probably tell me part of it and I go, "Oh, wow, yeah, okay, yeah." So I don't think they realise, my friends, no.
Even if you just go out for a quiet drink, there are other people out having a drink and they will be talking and chatting and there'll be almost like a back layer of noise. If there is a back tone, I'll zone into that more, whereas if there's a back tone suddenly outside, like if there was a back tone in this office, I would tune into that. So social life is quite hard really, because if you're trying to talk to someone, you're trying to watch the mouth, you're trying to focus on them, Basically, the background is eating the words up. I've tried to keep to the more quiet establishments, but friends don't necessarily go, right, let's go to the quiet pubs.
You feel embarrassed if you have to keep saying pardon to people. That's really awkward. Well, you could feel inadequate and a bit stupid. I'm always trying to preempt what people say, and that's interesting actually, because if you're in the middle of the conversation, it's easier than if someone says something unexpectedly. So if someone does say something unexpected, you think, I didn't hear that. Should I just say pardon? Or should I try and work it out? And when you do work it out, you come up with something completely different.
The hearing aids came in the later stages of year 9 and going into year 10. We were getting to GCSEs. I was more worried about prejudice and what people would think if I did have a hearing aid. Thankfully, they'd designed a new model at that point. When I initially had it, they were incredibly thick, quite weighty actually, almost a brown tinged hearing aid. But this was a smaller model, and it was see-through. But if my hair was slicked back, you'd still be able to see the mechanisms in the battery and stuff.
They wanted to give me a hearing aid, and I said no, I'm not quite ready. I thought, hearing aid, glasses, the next one's dentures. No, thank you. I didn't consider myself as being old.
He recommended that I should have a hearing aid in one ear, but I've been putting it off for as long as possible. I think because you associate hearing aids with old people. Now, I know I'm not. Well, I'm getting older. I'm not getting any younger, but I didn't want to start wearing them yet. I didn't think I was at the point where I actually needed it, and well, I thought I could manage without.
Hearing aids. Different world to me. For a long time I wasn't able to hear well. And once I had the hearing aid on, I could hear everything. I could connect with voices from all directions. It's like having a stereo speaking system. So I was back to the world again, really.
I suppose everybody's different, aren't they? But for me, I certainly wouldn't want an NHS hearing aid because they're the big ones, aren't they? That's what I would assume. It's a bit like wearing glasses. I wear contact lenses, so vanity and all that. Vanity. I've now got my own loop, so I've got like a microphone in the middle of the table because meetings I find really annoying. And again, I think there's not really an awareness. Like, I'll walk in the meeting room and the lights aren't on. So I'm like, I'll just put the lights on. And our team's got really big now. So we had this big team meeting and I said to my boss, I'm really worried about this because everyone talks over each other. So she did this thing where we had cards and everyone had to hold their card up if they wanted to speak. And it worked really well because then I could just listen to that one person.
Diagnosis is very important because you know where you are and you know your condition, and people will start to understand how I am and why sometimes I'm sitting there and I don't seem to be noticing anything. It's because I can't hear. Now I can tell people, can you speak louder? And they can give me the help with that. Otherwise people think that you're trying to ignore them.
Knowing that you've got hearing loss, you learn coping techniques as well. So mine is, when I go into a crowded environment and if I want to speak to someone, I know I've got to stand right next to them.
I try to sit next to the person who I know I'll probably talk to the most. I lean in and try to do as much as I can to get close enough to them. And if not, the people who I go out with are close friends anyway. So I would just say, I really didn't catch that. Could you say it again?
We go to bingo, not often. Now they're calling the numbers out, and quite often when they call 80-something, I can't differentiate whether it's 80-something or 50-something. So I look at the little screen in front of me, and that tells me what number it was.
It's a very interesting thing to come to university and talk to somebody from London or Wales, because when I was lip reading, I saw it was a lot more, the mouth positioning was a lot more close and rounded. They might speak really, really quickly, but their mouth's not moving so much. It's like your mouth's not moving enough to form those words. So it is a challenge.
I'm a singer, so it does make for a little bit of interest around that. It got to the point where I've never classed it as a disability.
I have to say, can you please repeat for me, you know? And it does happen. It's slightly embarrassing.
No, I mean, I'm a brave person. I'm a fighter. So just go, whatever, you know. Never say I'm old. Never say I can't do it. I have the determination. I can do it. Maybe it's a little slower, but I'll be there.